My parents sold my car, so I left and never came back. I, 19M, bought that car with my own money. Worked double shifts, fixed appliances for neighbors, skipped parties, skipped food sometimes, just to stack up enough to finally get something with 4 wheels and an engine that didn't die on hills. It was old, dented, had a busted speaker and smelled like wet carpet, but it was mine. I paid for it. No help, no co-signers, no, we'll cover half if you do chores, garbage. Just me and the hours I burned alive at work. That car was freedom. And more than that, it was proof I could do something without them. I still lived at home. Not because I wanted to, but because rent was murder and my job barely covered gas and groceries. I paid utilities, stayed out of the way, didn't bring people over. I gave them no reason to complain. But slowly, they started acting like my car was just part of the house inventory. My mom borrowed it to go to the store. My dad took it to run errands. They never asked. Just took the keys. When I brought it up, it turned into a joke. You're so territorial, relax, it's not like we crashed it, family shares, don't be selfish. Every time I stood my ground, they made me feel like I was being dramatic for wanting basic respect. At first, I tried to convince myself it wasn't a big deal. I kept thinking, okay, they're my parents. They're just used to controlling everything. Maybe it'll pass. But it didn't. The car slowly stopped being mine. I'd come home from a shift, exhausted, planning to drive to the gym or grab groceries, and the car would be gone. No explanation. Just gone. When I asked, they'd look confused. Like I was the one being difficult. And what were they doing with it, anyway? My mom doesn't even like driving. Then one day, I came home and it was just gone. No note. No heads up. No text. I waited a few hours thinking maybe they took it again, but something felt off. I called my mom and asked where it was. She said it like she was telling me she bought milk. Oh, we sold it. The kitchen needed remodeling. You barely use it anyway. I didn't even know how to respond. My throat closed up, like the words couldn't get out because my brain refused to process what she just said. They sold my car. My car. Without asking. Without telling me. Just, sold it. I asked why they thought that was okay. My dad told me, you live under our roof. That car was parked in our driveway. You didn't buy the land it sat on. My mom just said, we figured you'd understand. It was time to prioritize the family, not your little hobbies. Hobbies? That car was my life. It got me to work. It kept me sane. I worked for it. And they just sold it like it was an old couch sitting in the garage. The worst part? They didn't feel bad. They didn't apologize. They acted like I was being childish for even caring. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't cry. I just went to my room and sat on the bed. The silence was loud. The rage was cold. I looked around and saw nothing that felt like mine anymore. That car was the one thing I owned in that house. The one thing I worked for. And they just treated it like a spare appliance they could flip for cash. I packed that night. No announcement, no confrontation. Just took what was mine and left while they slept. And as I walked away from that house, I knew one thing for sure, I was never coming back. I didn't have a plan. Just a backpack, some saved up cash, and a phone full of contacts I hadn't spoken to in months. I crashed on a friend's couch for a while. Worked longer shifts. Took night shifts too. Anything to stay afloat. But you know what? I felt free. Every time I came back and saw my shoes by the door, I knew they were there because I put them there. Every dollar I spent was mine. Every step forward was mine. No one could take that away from me again. I was done being used. Done being disposable. I promised myself, no one, not even family, would ever have that kind of control over my life again. I didn't plan to ever speak to them again. Not after what they did. But people like them, they don't just let you go. Not because they care, but because they don't like losing control. It started with texts from my mom. We need to talk. Don't be dramatic. Come home and let's be adults. I didn't answer. A few days later, my dad tried calling. He left a voicemail that started calm but ended with him yelling that I was ungrateful and disrespectful. That's when I knew, they weren't sorry. They were just mad they couldn't manipulate me like before. I was still crashing with a friend, sleeping on an air mattress and folding my clothes into milk crates. It wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful. No one took my stuff. No one told me what to do. And for the first time, I could breathe. My friend even helped me start looking for a used car. It wouldn't be the same, but I needed wheels to survive. Then, about 2 weeks after I left, I came home from a shift and found a letter taped to my friend's apartment door. From my mom. I don't know how she found the address, but there it was. Handwritten. She never writes anything by hand. I almost threw it away. But something made me open it. Inside, it wasn't an apology. Not really. It was a 2-page guilt trip. She talked about how hard they had worked to raise me, how ungrateful I was acting, how I didn't understand the sacrifices they made. How that car was just a thing, and family should matter more than stuff. She even had the nerve to say they sold it, for my benefit too, because the kitchen renovation would help my future if I ever moved back in. As if I'd want to live in a house where my boundaries meant nothing. Where everything I owned could be sold the moment it was convenient for them. I didn't reply. I didn't even acknowledge it. But the next week, I saw them. In person. I was working a closing shift at the hardware store, and I saw their car pull up in the parking lot 10 minutes before we closed. My heart dropped. I ducked into the break room, hoping they'd go away. But they didn't. My dad came in and asked for me by name. My manager waved me over. I stepped out, and there they were. Both of them. Dressed nice. Smiling fake smiles like this was some sitcom reunion. My mom opened with, "There's our boy." I didn't say anything. Just stared. My dad said, "Come on, let's talk. We'll drive you home." I told them I already had a home. That I was good. That I didn't want to talk. But they didn't move. My dad's voice got sharp. "You're being ridiculous. You're living like a stray. Come home." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "I'm not your dog." That's when his face changed. The anger slipped through. He said, "That car was parked in our driveway. That makes it ours. You think you're owed something? We let you live rent-free. You're lucky we didn't sell your stuff too." I don't remember exactly what I said back. Something about how they treated me like an object, not a person. Something about how they only cared about control, not family. I remember my mom trying to cry. Saying she missed her baby. That I was breaking her heart. But I didn't buy it. Not anymore. I told them both to leave. That if they didn't, I'd call the cops. That I wasn't a child anymore, and I didn't owe them anything. They left. Eventually. But not before my dad said, "You'll regret this. When you need us, don't bother calling." And I just nodded. Deal. That night, I lay on the air mattress staring at the ceiling. And for the first time since this all started, I smiled. Not because I was happy. But because I knew, without a doubt, I had finally broken free. The cost was high. But the peace? It was worth every penny. After they ambushed me in the street, everything inside me hardened. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was clarity. Cold, sharp, unshakable. They weren't there to make things right. They were there to pull the strings again. And I wasn't a puppet anymore. After they left, I didn't go back inside right away. I sat on the curb, staring at the spot where their car had been, breathing slowly, letting the silence settle into my chest like armor. That night I packed my things tighter. I moved the spare keys. I changed the passcode on my phone. I closed the emergency email account I once gave them access to. I even told my landlord not to speak to anyone asking about me, no matter what they said. I didn't care if they showed up sobbing or smiling, with gifts or guilt. I was done. Completely. Irrevocably. I was nobody's child anymore. And in that emptiness, something strange grew, peace. Quiet, lonely peace, but real. I started sleeping better. I worked double shifts at the shop and took side gigs fixing bikes and junked-out cars. I didn't mind the hours. I was building something. Brick by brick. A life that couldn't be taken from me. A name that couldn't be erased with a signature on a title transfer. I saved enough for a decent truck. Old, but reliable. No rust, solid tires, clean interior. I paid in full and took the keys in silence. Drove it off the lot like I was driving away from my past. For the first time in years, I felt proud again. Not the fake kind they used to offer when I did what they wanted. The kind that came from digging myself out of a hole they left me in. But even in peace, the past finds ways to claw back. 2 weeks after getting the truck, I saw them again. Not in person. Online. A mutual family friend had posted a photo from a wedding. And there they were, smiling. Laughing. Happy like nothing ever happened. Like the son they kicked out was just a phase. A closed chapter. I stared at that photo for too long. Not because I missed them. Because I saw it clearly now. They'd moved on like it was easy. Like they didn't toss me out like garbage in the middle of the night. Like they didn't sell the one thing I had to my name. I felt nothing. No sadness. No longing. Just finality. The kind that wraps around your ribs and settles in your bones. They were gone. And I'd finally accepted it. That night I wrote a letter, not to them, not for them, but for me. I wrote everything they'd done. Every word. Every bruise they left on my life, even the invisible ones. I folded it and locked it in my desk. Not because I'd ever send it. Because I needed to see it in ink. To remind myself that it was real. That I wasn't crazy. That what they did wasn't love. It was control, masked in tradition, wrapped in manipulation, dressed up as family. And I wasn't their son anymore. I was my own man now. And I wasn't looking back. It had been almost a year since they threw me out and nearly 6 months since I saw them last, and yet, somehow, they still found a way to haunt me. I was working late one night, under the hood of a car in the shop, when my phone lit up with a notification from my old high school alumni group. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. A post. A reunion. A photo. A comment, my name. They were talking about me. Saying they missed me. Asking if anyone had heard from me. And right beneath it, my mother's reply. He's gone down a bad path. We tried to help, but he pushed us away. We still love him, though. Always will. I stared at the screen like it had punched me in the chest. Bad path? Help? Love? What a joke. They didn't help, they erased me. They didn't love, they controlled. But now they were playing the victim, rewriting history for anyone who would listen. And it didn't stop there. More posts followed. More whispers. One said I was addicted to something. Another said I'd been arrested. I hadn't touched a drink in months. I hadn't so much as jaywalked. But the story was out there, and I knew where it came from. Them. Their guilt disguised as concern. Their shame wrapped up in fake compassion. The worst part? Some people believed them. I got a message from an old classmate, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, I heard things have been rough. If you ever need to talk." I didn't even reply. What was I supposed to say? No, I'm not a junkie. My parents just couldn't stand the idea of me standing on my own. I didn't have the energy to correct their lies. I just let it sit. Let the silence grow. Because deep down, I realized something: I didn't owe anyone the truth. Not anymore. I didn't need to defend myself against people who never cared about me in the first place. I had my truck, my tools, my work, and my own name. That was enough. I could have let it go. I should have. But one night, when the shop was quiet and the rain was tapping against the windows, I opened my laptop and pulled up their profiles. My mother. My father. Their friends. Their church. Their smug little world that had erased me and replaced me with a convenient lie. And I did something I hadn't done in months: I spoke. I wrote a post. Just a few lines. No drama. No rage. Just truth. They didn't help me. They didn't support me. They sold my car and threw me out without warning. I was on the street. They cut contact. They blocked me. They only reached out when they realized they couldn't control me anymore. Don't believe the sanitized version. I clicked post and closed the laptop. I didn't check the comments. I didn't want applause. I didn't need validation. I just wanted it out there. Real. Undeniable. The next morning, my inbox was full. Apologies. Confusion. Shock. Some unfriended me. Others thanked me. But the one that hit the hardest was from my aunt. The only one in the family who had stayed quiet all this time. Her message was short. "I believe you. I always did." I stared at that line for a long time. No reply. Just a weight lifted I didn't know I was still carrying. That weekend, I took the truck out to the coast. Parked by the cliffs. Watched the ocean crash against the rocks. The wind was sharp, the sun low. I stood there, breathing it all in. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt whole. Not because they apologized. Not because I got justice. But because I told the truth. And I survived it. Alone. On my terms. A few weeks after I made that post, things started to change, not just online, but in me. The silence that used to feel heavy started to feel calm. I stopped checking over my shoulder. I stopped expecting them to show up. I realized they wouldn't. Or maybe they finally got the message. Either way, they were gone. Truly gone. And in their place was something I'd never really felt before: space. Space to breathe, space to live, space to rebuild. I got promoted at the shop. Nothing fancy, just lead tech, but it meant more hours, better pay, and the keys to lock up at night. My boss handed me the new contract with a grin. "You earned this," he said. And I had. Every bit of it. No shortcuts. No handouts. Just grit and grease and sweat. I used that raise to rent a better place. Nothing big, still modest, but with real windows and a view of the street. I bought a used couch, a decent mattress, and stocked my fridge with more than just frozen burritos. Slowly, piece by piece, my life started to feel like mine again. But healing isn't linear. Some nights I still had dreams, memories, warped and twisted, like my mom's voice calling me for dinner or my dad asking me to help him with something in the garage. And I'd wake up in a sweat, heart pounding, until I remembered where I was, who I was, and that I didn't owe them a single second of my life anymore. They didn't reach out again. No messages. No letters. No more drive-bys. I wondered if my post had finally embarrassed them enough to leave me alone. Or maybe they were still out there, spinning their version of the story to anyone who would listen. I didn't care. Let them talk. Let them build whatever fantasy helped them sleep at night. I had no interest in correcting it anymore. I was too busy living. There was a girl I'd met, nothing serious yet, just coffee and walks and long talks about music and stupid dreams, but she laughed at my jokes, even the bad ones. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer it. Maybe one day I would. But for now, it was just nice to be around someone who didn't want anything from me but me. One night we sat on the hood of my truck, staring up at the stars. She asked me what I was most proud of. I didn't even have to think. Getting out, I said. Getting away from people who said they loved me but only wanted to own me. She looked at me for a second, then nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Or maybe she just respected that I didn't flinch when I said it. Either way, it felt good to say it out loud. To name it. To claim it. Because that's what this whole thing was about in the end. Not revenge. Not proving them wrong. Not even justice. It was about reclaiming my life. About taking back every piece they tried to cut out of me. My name. My choices. My dignity. And if anyone's reading this, going through something similar, wondering if it's worth walking away, even when it's your own blood, let me be the one to say it, yes. It's worth it. Love without respect isn't love. Family that destroys you isn't family. You don't owe them your life just because they gave you theirs. I used to think freedom looked like money, cars, travel. Now I know what it really looks like, peace. Silence. Breathing without fear. Living without shame. Choosing your future without asking permission. And after everything they did to try and break me, I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I'm not going anywhere.